Hey everyone, before we get into this week's episode, just a couple of housekeeping items. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to rate and review. 5 stars only, please. You can follow us on Instagram at Read Watch Play Podcast or email us at readwatchplaypod@gmail.com. Randy, you want to kick off the show?
Welcome to Read Watch Play, your dive into the stories we love and how they're adapted. We're coming to you live from a dingy castle in the Carpathian Mountains. This is episode 32, and Vampuary continues. We are discussing Nosferatu. My name is Randy. I'm here with my co-host Nick, who sucks more than Count Orlok. Here we go.
I take back what I said in the last episode. That's in my top 3 meanest comments.
Nick, what are we covering here today? There's so much wrapped up in this adaptation, as there's such a long history of vampire stuff. What are we covering here?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the vampuary, even though, it's a little corny. I'll give you that. But you had an opportunity to talk about, it's the vampires we love and how they're adapted. I mean, it's just 2 in a row. No, but for those of you kind enough to join us today, we are covering the 1922 original version of Nosferatu, which was an adaptation of Dracula, and then the remake that's currently in theaters, starring our boy Willem Dafoe.
Yes, love Willem. Synopsis for those unacquainted to Nosferatu, which prior to the last 2 weeks was me. Nosferatu tells the story of newlywed couple Ellen and Thomas Hutter of Visburg, Germany. The couple is struggling financially and emotionally as Ellen is plagued again by dreams of a demon who wishes to wed and bed her. Thomas, in hopes to pay for the honeymoon and receiving a large commission, agrees to travel to Transylvania to meet with a reclusive old man with poor hygiene living in Transylvania who wants to buy some property in their town. At the castle, the nights are long and the days are weird as Hutton is stalked by the Count and begins to suffer dreams of his own. As the hour grows late, Thomas realizes that he has been led here as a pawn to spring the Count from his hibernation, and his real intention is to travel to Visburg, where he will seduce Ellen or bring about the death plague to the town. That is the story of Nosferatu. As you said, a somewhat adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. I'm assuming this was your first watch on both. I mean, I know it was on the new one because it literally just came out, but I know you've not seen the 1922 one.
No, and it was actually my first silent movie that I've ever seen. So
nice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So watching the original one, I realized that Old English, the H and the B are quite similar. And for, 20 minutes, I thought his name was Thomas Butter. And until I was like thinking about the movie I just watched, and I was like, did they change his name for the movie? No, I'm just an idiot.
Yeah. This required a lot of reading, the silent film. You had to be really locked in.
Worth it.
It worked. You need it. It's funny that we did not plan that this was going to come out back to back. I mean, we planned that it was coming out back to back with Twilight, but I don't think we realized, at least I didn't, that we were covering 2 vampire pieces back to back. Did you?
No. So are you saying vampuary is a thing going forward?
Friend of the pod, Sam, asked us if we were doing vampuary every year. And I'm like, maybe we have to do.
Done. Sam, you got it.
Twilight Eclipse coming January 2026.
We have 3 more Twilight movies we can do.
I think 4, actually, because they split the last one up.
Even better.
We can't get back to Twilight. We got to stop the Twilight train before we both get back on there.
I'm on it. Choo choo. Let's go.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think this might have been, I don't know if I've watched in its entirety a silent film. I feel like in school, like you've seen scenes or like portions or acts, or like in other movies, they'll do like an homage and do like a section of the movie that's like a silent, but I don't know if I've ever like fired up a movie from the 1920s and sat through it in its entirety.
Nope.
Yeah. So probably both the oldest movie we've ever watched.
Unless there's something we had to watch in like high school or something together. But Yeah, probably. I mean, 1922, that's what, 103 years ago now.
Yeah. And I mean, with the adaptation, this is done by Robert Eggers. Have you seen any of his other stuff, The Witch or The Lighthouse?
Yeah, I've seen The Lighthouse,
Yeah,
and I really liked it. It's
like The
also got our
Lighthouse.
boy Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, and Robert Pattinson.
And our other vampire.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the sequel or the prequel to what's going on here.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Let me think on that one.
Yeah, but I like those two as well. I have, or sorry, not those two. I've liked The Lighthouse. I've not seen The Witch. I've wanted to watch it, but it looks pretty scary. And as you know, I'm not good with the occult. And entering into this story, I did not realize how much of the occult there was going to be in Nosferatu, at least in the adaptation. Like, I don't know. I don't know enough about vampires. I really don't. I'm still new to that world.
Did you put your Barney nightlight in after the movie? You had to.
No, it was pretty good. I mean, that's something we'll talk about, I'm sure, with like, is this scary? And like, it's hard to grade a 1922 movie on like, is it scary or not? Because it's been memed to death and it looks old, and you can see Max Schreck's like bald cap on. You know, but even the new one, I'll be interested to talk about with you. Like, you know, do you think that this is like a scary thing, and are vampires scary, or have vampires just like completely lost their scary factor in society today? Like, do you think they have?
Yes, I think Twilight made vampires not scary anymore.
Yeah,
that, and then the Cocoa Puffs guy, he totally killed vampires.
Sesame Street did not help. Like, when you
that
all
guy
learn to
counts.
count. Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, Alyssa and I were saying, like, if the count in this movie would have had to count in any form, that would have been just hilarious. Like, I would have loved. I was like, that would have just been, because I mean, they went for it. They did the voices.
Yeah. 1 rat, 2 rats, 3 rats.
I know. Yeah. I don't know. It's also like, if you think about the classic monsters, like, this is the only one we still really get. Like, we don't get a ton of werewolf stuff. Or I know the Wolfman is coming out like soonish. Don't know much about it, but I don't know. If I think of like mummies, werewolves, vampires, maybe Frankenstein would slip into that category. Vampires feels like the like turf that has been trod over the most in like so many formats, from like action, horror, romance. And I don't know why that is, why it has like really stood the test of time. Like, I even think of Blade, you know, and, you know, The Lost Boys, the 80s movie. Like, vampires have just stuck around in every decade in some format.
Yeah. And then even in the early 2000s, well, this I guess would count for both, but Underworld. Do you remember those movies?
Yeah, with Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah.
Was her, right? Like a trilogy of movies, I think.
Yeah, and that's vampires versus werewolves.
Yeah, okay, the werewolves there. But yeah, I mean, it's like, when's the last time we got a Frankenstein movie? I don't even know. I have no idea.
Let's find out. I'll Google it.
I don't know. Dracula just seems to have a grip, and I don't know what it is about it. I have a theory, which I definitely want to get into, which is just the absolute horniness of vampires, which I did not know preceded Twilight.
Oh, there's a lot.
It's a lot,
actually.
I mean,
of Frankenstein.
I know there's got to be Frankenstein movies. But what's the last one that came out?
Van Helsing. Then there was Frankenstein in 2015, and then there was I, Frankenstein 2014.
Yeah, I know there was a movie, Lisa Frankenstein, that came out January of last year. But yeah, I don't know. It just feels like Dracula and the vampire is kind of the top of the mountain for classic monsters.
And you have a theory?
I think it's just the horniness. Like, I was not prepared. And I even think more kindly of Twilight now, where I'm like, this is not that off base for vampires. Like, this is what they do. So Once again, we cannot go back to Twilight. We're going to stick to Nosferatu today.
No, we're not.
Do you have any pew pews, some rapid fires?
Wow, which version of the movie did you like better?
The new one.
Wrong.
You're a silent film guy. Are you going to go on a silent film journey, you think?
I
because of
might.
This?
I'll hold my tongue, but I just did not. It was weird for me.
Who did you go with? I don't want to get too into it, but because I assume you were traveling at this point. I know you were traveling on holiday.
Yeah. I went with Aiden
No,
Kahi, who...
I was like, Aiden is going to want to go see this.
Oh, Aiden was pumped. Aiden has seen the 1922 version, the 1977 version, and was familiar with Dracula. So this was right up their alley. And then I also went with Michaela's dad.
Yeah, nice. I knew they were a real one. I was like, when you told me you were going, even before I went, you went on, was it like the day after Christmas?
On Christmas.
On Christmas. I was like, the only way this is happening is because Aiden is driving the ship into
absolutely.
Visburg.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. What did I know we're like way off the tangent on the rapid fires, but did they enjoy it?
Yes. So actually, it was interesting. Aiden gave the remake an A. Mr. Kahi gave the remake a B, and I gave it a C+.
Did Michaela go? Did you say?
She did not.
This is not up her alley.
Not at all. And after watching it, I was like, I'm really glad I didn't push harder for you to come, because I would not hear the end of it. Yeah. You would not have liked that movie at all.
I love that. All three of you just routed out of Christmas dinner and said,
yeah,
going to see some Count Orlok dong hanging in this movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just not on my bingo card of things to happen in this movie, but we got
a lot of biting and sucking. Yeah.
Rapid fire back at you. What commission would you need to get to consider getting in that horseless carriage?
You can't pay me to get in a horseless carriage. I have seen too many horror movies to get in the horseless carriage. I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. You show up with a horseless carriage, I am sprinting the other way. I do not care. I will live in poverty. I will not go on a honeymoon. Nope.
Yeah. There's two answers to this, really. In the original, it's not a set chance I'm trusting this real estate agent from the get-go. He looks like a lunatic day one in the 1922 movie. Before Knock goes off the rails in the adaptation, he seems semi-normal. I mean, he's a real estate agent, so you have some questions, but he seems semi-normal. Apologies if we have any real estate agent listeners. So I don't know if I'm trusting OG 1922 Knock in his journey, because this dude seems like he's already under a spell.
Yeah. The hair sticking straight out to the sides. And
those eyebrows, I need to know if those are prosthetics or real eyebrows.
I need to know if the mustaches in the 1922 movie were real.
Yeah. I've got a lot of questions coming out of that. Maybe I'll ask this and then we'll follow up on it. I need a yes or no. Does this concept scare you at all?
No.
Yeah. I'm
no, I didn't find. This wasn't a scary movie for me. More suspense, thriller, but I wouldn't say like horror or scary.
Yeah, and some gross liquid noises throughout a large portion. Any other pew-pews you got?
No.
All right.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Yeah. I have 2 listener comments, and then we'll jump right into the 1922, which I label as the book discussion, which is not a book discussion.
I saw that. I was going to make fun of you. You beat me to it.
Sam wrote in Retrodopia Pod and said, original movie is incredible. It gets parodied and poked fun at nowadays, but Graf Olak, is that his real name, Graf? I didn't know he had a first name. Is pretty creepy. I'm excited to see the new one. And Logan wrote in and said, Nosferatu, the original, made it into my top 10 want/must-see movies. That said, please tell me I'm not the only person that learned about Nosferatu through the Night Shift episode of SpongeBob. In case I am, It's the episode commonly referred to as the hash slinging slasher, in which Nosferatu turns the lights of the Krusty Krab on and off. There's no way I'm not the only one. That was definitely my first knowledge of Nosferatu.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but now I need to go watch SpongeBob today.
You don't know the hash slinging slasher?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Oh my god! It's the one where the lights keep going on and off, and SpongeBob and Squidward, I think, are working, and you just see like the guy with like the hook, like knocking on the glass of the Krusty Krab.
That's Nosferatu?
Apparently. It's funny. They were doing some, I was on my usual behind the scenes bullshit, watching some YouTube clips, and they were asking Willem Dafoe if he has seen this episode of SpongeBob, and he's like, absolutely not, but maybe I need to bone up on my SpongeBob. It's just like hearing Willem Dafoe say this was like just really funny. He's like, no, I'm not privy to that one. Like, Willem, you're just a treasure. I've loved you ever since OG Spider-Man. But those are our 2 listener comments this week. People, I don't know how, like, I knew the name Nosferatu, but I'm not going to pretend that in my youth I went and watched this 1922 movie. I didn't know about it. I probably learned about it maybe 5 to 10 years ago. Didn't even realize SpongeBob was parodying it. Just went right over my head.
Yeah, I didn't know the name Nosferatu until we started talking about this movie.
Yeah, I was wondering when I suggested this if you're like, what the hell are you talking about?
I was Googling. It's why I asked you to spell it. I was like, what are we talking about here? And I was like, oh, it's Dracula.
Yeah. As mentioned, kind of background as we get into this. Came out in 1922. Was written by Henrik Galeen, directed by F.W. Murnau. Stars Max Schreck as the Orlok Count. Apparently his name's Graf. This came out at an interesting time where it's after Bram Stoker's Dracula, like you said, the novel, which I think was late 1800s. And it was based upon it, but they changed a lot of things to not consider it an adaptation. And there was a whole lot of legal fighting then between the estate of Bram Stoker and the makers of this movie. But this is the first screen version we get of, Dracula. And technically, it's not the first vampire movie ever, but the supposed original one, which is like a Hungarian movie, was just like lost to time. So this is really kind of like the first movie we have that people can watch that depicts vampires and Dracula. And, another thing is the first to ever have the idea of vampires dying from exposure to sunlight, in a movie. Considered a super important film in history. So many superlatives. You'll see it on lists for like most important, like Logan said, it was on his 10, like I must see this in my life.
Yeah.
So it's considered a big deal, for the ground it laid, which kind of makes sense because, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to tell Logan it's free on Amazon Prime right now. You just have to watch 2 commercials.
Yeah. And it's colorized, right? Because I know there's like so many versions out there.
Well, it's like kind of colorized.
Yeah.
They added in some like yellows and greens, but that's about it.
Yeah. It's not heavily colored, that's for sure. But I guess I want to know, I have some discussion points on kind of the movie, but I guess first just hit me with, how was your experience watching your first silent film?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was interesting. I'm like, would it be considered a good movie today? No, it wouldn't. But if you account for the fact this was made 103 years ago to where they couldn't even have, audio on these movies, I think it was fine. I think it told it was broken up into 3 acts. It told a good story. And actually, I had a little bit more context having seen the new one first, but, I could follow the story. I thought it was, I guess, well done for 1922. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we both went the same direction. We saw the adaptation and the original. I'm kind of glad I went that way because it left me with surprise.
I am not at all.
Yeah, I like the 1922 movie. I mean, like, is it something that I'm going to fire up again anytime soon? Probably not. Was it fun. I had a pretty good time with it. It's like it is like Sam said. It's like a little silly now. Some things you watch, but it tells an interesting story. That's for sure. And like I imagine that if I was, you know, wearing my bowler hat in 1922, sitting in the theater watching this, I'd probably have my socks blown off and probably be a little bit scared of Orlok.
Yeah.
But today, it just doesn't hold up in that same way. It just relies on like good storytelling and even some of the funny stuff. Like I thought the score was like good but comical in some ways. Like there'd be really scary scenes, but there'd be like this cheerful, like orchestral sounds going on.
Did you enjoy this movie or Twilight more? What did you have a better time watching?
Twilight. Like I'm telling you, I'm ready to fire up a Close right now. Just dare me.
I double dog dare you.
I thought like we mentioned like there's a lot of reading in this, and like I wasn't prepared for the amount of like intercards, I guess they're called. And they're kind of like reading between the movie, and some of them like really hit hard. Like I thought the one where Hutton was first getting commissioned to do this, and the real estate agent is like, it might cost you a little sweat. And it was like ... and a little blood. I'm like, oh yeah. I was like, this
They
is pretty
ate with
good.
that one.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Were there any things that like stuck out to you that you like parts of the 22 one that you really enjoyed?
The lack of blinking by Count Orlok. His eyes were wide the entire movie, and I thought that was hysterical.
Yeah, especially it's so bad. It sounds like we're making fun of this movie. Really not. But I laughed so hard when Hutton he's in bed and he opens his door when he's in the castle and Orlok is just at the end of the hallway standing there staring at him.
Yeah.
I was like, is this the original jump scare in movie history?
Now that is a good question that we should look into.
Like literally just standing there. And the best part was the follow-up was that he's creeped out and like upset about this, but then he sees that there's like breakfast on the table, like a real nice spread Orlok put out for him in the morning, and Thomas Hutton is immediately jacked up again and like, sweet. Got some eggs, got some sausage.
Good to go.
Yeah, last night was a little weird, but I'm all right. The other thing that I wanted to ask if you like clocked was like funny, silly things that happened in this one for me. When he arrives in Visburg and he finally gets the deed to like his new house, it's literally Orlok just walking up to the house with a coffin under his arm. That was it. No other bags. He's literally just palming a coffin and carrying it to his front door. I was like, this is incredible. Like,
yeah.
And also, like, how did they do this? Like, there was so much because this was so old. I was like wondering how they did some, like, especially like Orlok fading in and out. It was like some really funny stuff.
Well, and they also set that old decrepit house directly across the street from Hutton and his wife, not like off in the distance. It's just like they would have been looking at that every day.
I know. Every day. And that makes like more sense now why Ellen like keeps going to the window in a way. Like it's not only that she's like under this spell, but she's also going to probably an area where she can look over and see Orlok when he is there, you know, in the house next door. So it's like, oh, tied some of those knots together for me.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Do you think we need to bring back breaks in movies or acts? How'd you feel about that?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would say we need to bring it back, but I can see why they had it. But I do think if somebody's making a movie and it fits,
yeah,
it could be cool to see it again in a modern setting.
Yeah, there is a new movie that is releasing wide this month that does have an intermission in it. Can't remember the last time there was an intermission in a movie. I'm pretty pumped to see that.
I was just about to say we should bring back intermissions, though.
Yeah, that was
even
great.
if it's not like an act break.
Yeah,
because if you're going to keep making movies 3 hours long, I can't. Some of them I just can't. I can't have popcorn and a water or a soda because then I got to get up in the middle of the movie. I got to sit there and just raw dog it.
Yeah. And if you're in one of those theaters where you have to administer the butter yourself, the bottom is just never getting as much butter as the top.
Never.
So you can do a refresh on your butter halfway through, which I hate that. Like, why am I doing this? Like, isn't it just so much easier to throw the butter all around together?
Or put a little popcorn in, put some butter, then put some more popcorn in, put a little butter, let it just trickle down.
Yeah, that'd be way.
That's how they used to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was about to say, like, who are these people that are like requesting non-buttered popcorn? But I guess if you're lactose intolerant, you're probably not having.
I think that's
buttery
even
popcorn.
lactose intolerant people make exceptions for buttery popcorn.
For buttery popcorn, yeah. It's just like, why even get popcorn at that point if you're not going to have butter on it? Another quick question I have for you. Is Count Orlok the original incel?
No?
I mean, his decree as he's coming to Visburg was, I'm paraphrasing here, that he says he will only save the town. He says, deliverance is possible by no other means than me getting laid by the Virgin. That is literally what he puts out there. He doesn't say laid. He says something else fancier. But he just tells the town, give me someone to sleep with, or I will kill everyone. Like, it's not a good look for our guy.
It's a bad look, if any. At best, it's a bad look. I'll give you that.
At best, it's a bad look. So what's the at worst?
I don't know where to go from there. But yeah, we need to. I was thinking we were going to gloss over that one and not discuss it.
I'm just like this, and like I said, this made Twilight make so much more sense. Edward watching her sleep, Edward preying on her, Edward wanting to sleep with, the young woman, in our original The Virgin. And I'm like, okay, this Twilight story is not actually that off base for vampire history. I'm like, I have a little more respect for what's going on. It only doesn't work because it's a contemporary setting and they play it off as consensual.
Yeah.
But I'm like, damn, Orlok is a creep. And like, even at the end, when she's laying in bed and you see his shadow hand come up, like he literally is like going for like a boob grab. And I'm like, bro, just relax. Like, take it easy, Orlok. This is not the time. Like, is she even awake right now? Like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, you think after all these years he'd learn something, but
yeah, after 103 years.
Yeah.
Him and Edward learned nothing.
Nothing. I mean, who knows? Is this even his castle? This is like the OG version of living in your mom's basement, is Orlok living in his family's castle.
Yeah, well, okay, so Edward was 5 when this happened.
It's true.
He was born in 1917 and this was 1922. So
is he the child of Orlok and Ellen?
That would be interesting if we didn't already have Edward's origin story.
Yeah, which I don't know about.
It's from the doctor bit him because he was dying of the Spanish influenza and didn't have any family.
Yeah, which is interesting. Like, I guess all of these stories were birthed out of something with plagues and sicknesses and blood contamination. I guess that is, I have not read Bram Stoker's Dracula. I was talking to a friend of the pod, Dave, and he was like, you guys should read it. I know there's also like the 90s movie where Gary Oldman plays Dracula. I've heard it's a tough read. Like, it's kind of a slog at times. And sometimes I'm not up for that with classics. Like, I want to appreciate it, but I also don't want to slog.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it seems like all of the vampire stuff is built out of like insecurities over blood contamination with like diseases back in the day, which is like kind of interesting and pretty like, I mean, everybody's writing stories based on some experience. So I guess that's what it is.
It's interesting. Do you think if that's how Dracula was born, was this a way of making the unknown of blood, because blood diseases back then, no one had any idea what to do or how to treat anything.
No.
So do you think it was just a way of making the unknown a little less scary by
Has to
putting,
be. I
you know?
mean, or playing on the fears that people had,
Yeah.
which, I mean, you're right. Like, what are you going to do about it back then? The best idea the doctor, the medical professional has is like, you know what? Let's just shove some ethanol in our face. And that's honestly all I got. Like, that's my best idea. Being a
Just
doctor back
crazy.
then, it must have been so easy. Like, everyone believes you no matter how stupid your idea is.
Just throw some leeches on them and call it a day.
Yeah. Good old Viserys Targaryen
Yeah.
treatment. Anything else you got to say on the 1922 or vampires as a whole?
Now let's talk about this new movie.
Yeah, the new movie adaptation came out on Christmas. Nick was there day one.
I was there.
He was there. Written and directed by Robert Eggers. The film stars Bill Skarsgård as the Count, Nicholas Hoult, who I'm not sure has ever had a good time in any movie he's been in, like what his characters play.
No, 'cause he's also the clown in It.
And who is Bill?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was saying Nicholas Hoult, who
Oh.
in Juror Number 2,
Yeah.
I think of The Menu. He's the one, like, has Nicholas Hoult ever had a good experience?
Can we
on
get
film?
this guy a rom-com?
Yeah, just get him some love, something easy. Lily Rose Depp is his wife, Ellen. Amazing surrounding cast. The movie had a budget of about $50 million. 1 week out, it's already at 63 for a gothic horror film. Already eclipsed at least your base budget before you get into all the other stuff. And this movie's doing well, and I think it was a little bit of a surprise, and people were wondering if this coming out now is the right time. People were like, "This is a Halloween movie. This should come out around then." But maybe they made the right call. Putting this out on Christmas. It's doing really well. Seems to have strong audience and critical reception. But Nick Hinkson, what did we think of Nosferatu?
You got to get deeper with it, Randy.
I know. You got to talk a little like Yoda, too.
Yoda meets just throat cancer. Like,
yeah.
I did not. Okay. I thought the second part of the movie was fine. But for the first hour of the movie, I had no idea what was going on. And I couldn't understand the Nosferatu voice on screen. I needed subtitles.
Yeah.
Because I had that whole intro scene was I had no idea what happened. I just heard in the background while she's getting her chest bit by something I can't see. And then there's like an hour of nothing happening. And then finally we get to what I would consider the adaptation. So like an hour in is where it starts becoming like the 1922 version. And that's when I could follow it. And I thought it was done well, but I was already out of it by the time we got there. I just didn't care anymore. I was like, what am I doing here? This is Christmas. I should be anywhere else.
It's surprising for me. I thought you were really going to like it. I think this movie's an absolute vibe.
It's something.
Yeah. I really, really liked it. And I was shocked when we watched, I didn't want to bring this up when we were talking about the 1922, because we can talk about it here. I was surprised how, like, kind of beat for beat this is of the story told in the silent film.
If you skip the first hour.
No, not at all, because the only thing they added was expanding Ellen's role in the beginning and expanding the role of Willem Dafoe. I feel like everything else is the exact same. He goes to the castle. He has some spooky nights and some bad dreams. And then he gets stuck there. And then the Count goes back to Visburg and tries to sleep with Ellen. I was like, this is kind of the exact. I was surprised for a 102-year-old movie that he was like this faithful to it. But I really liked it. I loved actually the beginning scenes. I love the setup. I thought it just looked so excellent. Well, when we talk about like kind of what we didn't like, I feel this a little bit too with The Lighthouse, in that sometimes for like horror movies, there's like a lack of emotionality for me where it's like I don't
Mhm.
deeply connect to this story. And even with this one, it's not like I'm worried about the characters or what's going to happen or I'm emotionally invested in them. It's almost like I'm a little bit detached from a movie like this. And all that said, though, I still really enjoyed what I felt like I was viewing from afar with kind of no attachment to it. You know, I thought it looked great. I thought it sounded great. I thought it was immensely like creepy in some ways and, you know, just amazing performances in it. So I surprisingly really liked it, even though it's not something that's probably typically up my alley being a scary occult movie, but I had a really good time. Was there anything you did enjoy about this?
Yeah, and I think you just nailed it. One, I thought the performances were really good.
Yeah.
Like, and I thought the cinematography was great.
Yeah.
Like, it was real. Like from a visual standpoint, it was really cool, and that world they built was really cool, and their use of color, I thought was fantastic, or their
Mhm.
lack of use of color in some
Yeah.
cases. Um,
Almost the main
I thought,
character of the movie is
yeah,
like the visuals.
yeah. Honestly, I mean, it visually, it's the coolest movie I think we've watched this year.
Yeah. Any any scenes from like the visual side like stick out to you that you were like sitting there in the chair and thinking like, damn, this looks really awesome.
The what I'm going to call dream sequence in the
Mhm.
castle.
Yeah.
And actually, no, I'm going to scratch that. Back up to the horseless
The
carriage.
horseless carriage. Yeah, that's what
That
I was
scene
thinking.
where he's, dude, that there's the light and the is only in the background behind Thomas, and he's walking up, and there, there's this carriage that comes up, and it like slides forward
Mhm.
towards him with the door opening, and it just feels like he's in a trance now. That was a really, really cool scene. And I think that's where the movie started to get interesting for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear that. Even though I thought the gypsy scene was kind of funny, I do agree that the movie takes a different sort of pace when he gets to the castle and even
Yeah.
when he gets out of the castle. I think it hits even another gear. But I agree that was going to be my suggestion of that scene with the horseless carriage in the woods was like amazingly cool. And yeah, you mentioned like the lighting and like the coloring of this. It felt in a way, and this is not to like downgrade other horror, but like it felt like such an elevated version, and not
Mhm.
to like have it be pretentious, but it felt like just people who really cared spent a
Yeah.
lot of time making this and like had a very distinct vision. And I felt like they really executed their vision of like what they wanted this movie to feel and look like. And it was like the star of it for me.
Yeah. Well, $50 million is also bigger than most horror movie
Totally.
budgets. So
Absolutely.
you give them the budget,
Hmm. Yeah.
you know.
No, I agree. Should we just get into the cast and talk a little bit about, I mean, you mentioned performances was one of your, standouts. Do you want to talk about the cast?
Yeah, I would watch Willem Dafoe sit in a room and say nothing for 2 hours. He could just sit there and I'd be like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree. I, as I was saying about the pace, I think there's a problem with pacing in horror movies occasionally where the beginning can be great as there's a lot of unknown scariness. Like the the murder, the boogeyman hasn't been revealed, but you're just being creeped out. And sometimes it can like after that discovery happens, the movie can like fall a little bit in terms of its pacing. And it's hard to pick that back up until the climax. And I felt that this movie, due to like Willem Dafoe's character, just gave a just injection shot into this movie halfway through that just really took it to another level of
Mhm.
having him play off Aaron Taylor Johnson and Ralph Ineson, the other doctor. he just added like this new life into this movie, and it just really kept pace well for me. Where like you're right, it's like that slow burn start, then it finally takes off, and then Willem Dafoe comes in like a wrecking ball into this movie and is like making you laugh. He's adding levity, and he was just so good in it. Willem Dafoe is just always amazing. I'm assuming he was your kind of favorite performance in this.
Yes, but only because I'm so biased. Like, I don't want to take away from the other performances because I thought they were all incredible. However, like I said, I would watch Willem Dafoe drink his coffee and I would cry because it was the most inspiring thing I've ever seen. So Willem Dafoe was definitely my favorite and should be talked about as one of the best performances in the movie. But it's not like he clearly outshone everybody else.
Yeah, I agree. How'd you feel about Lily Rose Depp? She's coming into a tough spot as she's coming off the failed TV show The Idol on HBO. She brings all the baggage of like being the child of Johnny Depp. How did you feel she did in this movie?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I liked her a lot. I thought she was excellent.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything more that somebody else could have done with that role. Mm-hmm. And I thought she was good.
Yeah, I really like the scene where she's talking to Thomas Hutter. I'm just going to call him Butter from now on. And
TB.
Yeah, just like your guy DV. And she's talking about the dreams coming back. And she's crying in the scene. And then she's like laughing. And then switches back to crying. And then she's laughing again and crying. And she's like flipping back and forth between these emotions. I was like, damn, like she's got it. Like she's really good in this. And it's making me, who had no idea what I was getting into with this movie or what the story was, question like what is happening to Ellen? And like, is she actually just scared? Is she under a spell? Is there this longing for this vampire? Like, what is going on here? Because she's visibly right here having all these conflicted emotions. And I felt that she portrayed that so well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I thought she was good. Like she did really well for that role. I don't think anybody else could have done it differently. I do think the scene you just mentioned is where she really got to shine as an actress. The other scenes, I mean, some of the scenes where she's down by the water were also really well done. But for the most part, that role was fairly limited, and she did a lot with what she had.
Yeah, because I mean, I'd say like it opens and closes with her, and we flash back a little bit to her throughout. But there is a portion in this beginning where it is Nicholas Holt's movie. I mean, Butter is traveling to the castle and having his scenes in the castle with the Count. So it is really his and the Count's movie for a bit, which is how the original is. And I think it's paying like a deep homage to that. So she does exit for a while, and I thought Nicholas Hoult was great. I mean, he does such a good, like, I'm scared and I'm trying not to show it, but I'm very much showing it face. Like all of his scenes in front of that fireplace were just like he was knocking it out of the park, and like the vibe of that scene was so good, and his acting in it, his acting the whole time throughout the castle, I thought was really excellent.
Superb. Yeah, superb. I'm excited to see, honestly, whatever his next role is. Yeah.
I mean, we talked about Jeremy. He's very much right in, movie culture right now, having pretty big roles in a lot of different things at the moment, that's exciting for him because I think he's a real fun actor. How'd you feel about the voice work of Bill Skarsgård? If you had subtitles.
Yeah, I recognize that it's a really cool voice. I had no idea what the hell he was saying half the time. Like, that's the thing, is not having any context into what's going on in that intro scene, and then his voice over being what gives you that context, and me not understanding a word he said, me thinking the speaker blew out in the background. It just took me out of it, and it took me a really long time to come back into this movie. And I think definitely once Nosferatu comes to Germany and
Mhm.
he's on screen and you watch him speaking, it gets easier to understand.
Yeah.
And it is a cool, deep voice, but it just didn't work for me here.
Yeah.
It might work when I watch it at home, when I have subtitles.
Yeah. I agree that I had to felt like I trained my ear in real time in some of those first scenes to like understand the cadence of how he was speaking, to be able to pick up what was being communicated. So I totally agree. I thought he did a great job of just like vocalizing the voice, and it was sinister and creepy, and just the aura he had in the
Yeah.
film was very good. But totally agree that the first few lines, when he meets him, I'm like, okay, I need to work a little hard to understand what is being said here. So I totally agree with that. Even though, it would have been, I asked you the question of would you rather have watched this first or the original first? It was nice when we went back and watched the 1922 and Butter shows up at the castle and he gives the same line of like, you've arrived at midnight. And like, all the servants are asleep. And I was like, wow, they're like pulling direct lines.
Yeah.
And like,
that was cool.
I understood some of that stuff, but yeah, you had to work for it with Orlok. That's for sure.
If I had known what those lines were going into it
Mhm.
and been able to more quickly train my ear, to your point, I would have enjoyed that movie way more, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that for sure. Um, no, it totally makes sense. Any other performances in this you want to shout out?
Yeah, and I'm surprised I forgot to bring it up during the best scenes, but how are we not going to talk about the ship when
Yeah.
he goes down and they think there's a plague and he's going to get rid of whatever's causing the plague? It was a pretty decent scene in the 1922 version, but the scene in the
Excellent.
2024 version was so cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because this kind of spurred a thought in my head that something I really love about horror movies is it makes you watch the entire screen of a movie more so than any other genre. You were looking in the corners and the crevices of the entire picture to see what is happening. And there's not many other genres that do that for you because everything is trying to play tricks on your mind and things are always hidden. And that scene is a great example where the lightning is cracking and you're like, I know Orlok is going to be behind him at some point. And then he, spoiler, he's not behind him, but he's there creeping around.
Yeah,
Like it was just so good. That was like
you're right.
expertly done. So I love that about horror movies in terms of viewing the screen.
That's a really interesting observation about horror movies. You're totally right. You absolutely nailed it, though.
I think, you're talking about the scene there. I almost want to back up to where did you think this story was going when it started? Because I really had no idea. I went in completely blind. Like, did you know where the story was going or what it was going to be about? And even as, like, I was shocked when I thought, like, Butter died in the castle at first. I was like, oh, okay. So, like, this is going to be completely different than what I expected.
Yeah, I had no expectations, but I was along for the ride. Once
Mhm.
I got into it, I was definitely along for the ride. And that, to not having seen the 1922 version before, was pretty cool. Just getting to watch Nosferatu and see what happens next.
Yeah.
Not understand any of it because I can't hear what he's saying, but
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was just surprised. And I think the movie did a great job of keeping me on my toes, being uninformed. Where once Nicholas Holt got there, I was like, oh, okay, he's just going to be at this castle the whole time. And this is going to be taking place while Ellen is back in Visburg going through her stuff with their rich family friends and the doctors. And we might be flipping back and forth. And then I was like shocked when the Count just yeets himself out of there and heads back to Visberg. I'm like, oh, okay, this movie is like taking a completely different path than I expected. So I felt they did a real good job of keeping me guessing in where this was going. And even the end, I had some suspicions throughout. I'm like, this is probably not going to end well. Like, I don't think it's just going to be like a happy, we did it, we killed the Count ending. But how did the end, kind of the conclusion of the movie land for you?
I thought it was good. I thought it brought a lot of different story elements, full circle, tied a nice, neat bow. It's actually really, I think the end works really well because it pretty quickly and succinctly brings all the different storylines together. And you're like, oh my God, I see it. I see what was happening the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I really liked because I'm trying to remember from the 1922, it's almost in the new one, and tell me if I'm correct on this. At a certain point, Willem Dafoe's character, Professor, I can't remember his last name, he almost realizes what needs to happen with Ellen to save the town. Yeah. And he's like keeping people away from Ellen. He's like distracting them with this goose chase, kind of around the town to the graves of, their friend Aaron Johnson, Taylor Johnson's character. I don't remember anybody's name in this movie besides Butter. And in the original, though, it is almost like Ellen is kind of sending people away to do things for her, to leave herself open for the Count to come. Like, I think she sends someone for the doctor. And so that kind of surprised me. Through this, I was wondering, like, is Willem Dafoe's character actually working with and for the Count by like keeping everyone distracted? And really, he knew what needed to happen for this to end, I think. And, assisted in making that happen. Yeah. Is that kind of the right read of it? Is that
I think so.
You picked up?
That's where I got to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a cool shot at the end. Like, them on the bed, in true vampire fashion, tries to get laid, and that's his undoing. And maybe that's what happens to Edward Cullen. Might find out soon.
Who's to say, really?
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I mean, there was some deeply disturbing stuff in the lead up with like their friends' kids and that scene with the Count, like that stuff. It's just never fun seeing kids die. Coffins, not enjoyable. But all of it was just so good. And I even like the other doctor. I thought he was like a good presence in the movie and he kind of gave the straight man performance to Willem Dafoe's zany professor performance. Yeah. Do you want to, would you say the ship scene is your favorite scene in the movie?
No, I think it's the carriage scene, but the ship scene's a close second for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say I'm in a similar boat. I really like the tone setting of the opening. Wouldn't be my favorite. I'd say my favorite, it might be one of my favorite scenes of all of movies last year, was the fireplace scene. And just like the ambiance of that when Hutton Butter is first there. And the introduction of Orlok. Like, I really love that scene. And it was tense, even if I couldn't at the entire time understand what was being said. I was feeling this dread for Butter. And I was like, how is he just going to die? Like, there's no way he's leaving this castle unharmed. So I did really like that scene too.
That's another great use of like light and color, and it was creepy. The acting was great.
Did the gypsy scene, I got big. Remember in Shrek when they meet like Peter Pan or whoever, and he's like dancing around in the forest? Yeah. That was like kind of the vibe I got from the gypsy scene when Butter's like arriving there.
Peter Pan Shrek vibes.
Yeah. When like they're all playing the music and dancing around Butter, and I'm just like, I'm getting some big Peter Pan and Shrek vibes from this crew here.
You got something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you pick
That's
up on that?
no. That's not really the vibe I got from Shrek is not the vibe I got from any part of Nosferatu, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. That's probably a more rational take.
Nosferatu didn't give me SpongeBob vibes. Nosferatu didn't give me Shrek vibes.
It did play a good sense of creep. I mean, it always works, in a movie when the character's like, here's where I'm going, and the locals are like, can't go there. What are you doing? Like that always
Idiot.
works. Yeah. And then they just up and vanished overnight. I thought it was like some good tone setting to like what was going to happen, I thought. Yeah, I don't know if any other big scenes come to mind for me that I would like throw up there as like my favorites. I think Defoe's first scene in
That's a good
his
one.
in his apart or wherever he's living is good just because of the life he injects into the movie. And I knew Defoe was in it, so I'm just waiting for him to arrive.
Yeah.
So I really like that scene. Yeah, and then I'd probably tee up the end too, but I would say the stretch from the horseless carriage up to the fireplace is my favorite, and then I have a real soft spot for the ship scene of just like
It's a
that
very
just
good
kind
scene.
of just kicked ass. Um, I don't know. Anything else you want to dive into?
I think that covers it for me.
I don't know if I have any other big discussion points. I really enjoyed it. I like that Ellen's role got expanded in this compared to the original.
That was a really good decision to add more depth to her character.
Yeah, and it made the intrigue a little more fun for their family friends of, him, the Aaron Taylor Johnson character, wondering kind of like what is going on in this town, and everyone slowly going sort of insane around him under the spell of Orlok. Like I felt that worked really well and added some excitement as to like what's going on in Visburg this whole time as Butter is in the castle. And I think that was like the best choice they made in this adaptation, was building on a compelling side plot. Well, I mean, it's the main plot, but side action to the castle. Yeah, I don't know if I have any others. Who's the real villain here?
It's a tough call. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
But probably Skarsgård's voice.
I don't know why this you saying that just reminded me of this. How about in the 1922 version when Butter is reading the vampire book at night and he's getting scared, and then he wakes up in the morning and he reads the book during daytime when he's like fine again, and he like laughs at the book and just spikes it on the ground. He did. I was like, that's so real, of like being scared at night, and then you're like finally in the light of day, and you're like, well, that was being ridiculous.
Yeah, once you safely made it through the night, yeah.
That was really good. Who would you say won the movie for you?
I think the cast. Because I think whether you enjoy the movie or not, when you look at all of those set pieces, they all came in really strong.
Mm-hmm.
You can't look at anybody's performance and be like, that was just okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a safe... I mean, the performances are the absolute winner here. I'd totally give a shout out to the cinematographer, who I think is Egger's guy, Jaron Blasky. But yeah, if I were to pick one person, like I know I'm going to get a good performance from Willem Dafoe. I was really happy with Lily Rose Depp's performance, because this could be just such a role that is like, she has to play, the classic, not under a spell. What is the word I'm looking for? What is it like when you're
bewitched?
Yeah, kind of like a bewitched, like, I think of like The Exorcist, where it's like you have to play the woman who's writhing in bed, sweating, and having bad dreams, and like
Possessed.
Possessed. Thank you. That's kind of like a thankless performance sometimes. Like you just have to be ridiculous. And I thought that the writing gave her so much more to do, and I thought she killed it when she had more to do in this. And I really liked it. I think she was great. Because we just know Willem Dafoe is going to be great. Like that's a given. Awesome. I don't think I really have much else to say. I hope people see this movie. You know, if you haven't checked out the 1922, it's like what was it, like 80 minutes?
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
75, something like that.
Would your definitive answer be watch the original first and then go see the adaptation?
I would just say it's worth a Google to understand the backstory before you go see the new version. I don't think it's a must watch. I think if you're going to watch both, yes, the order is watch 1922 Nosferatu and then watch 2024 Nosferatu. If you just want to watch the 2024 Nosferatu, it's worth a Google just to kind of understand what's going on a little bit, because I think that will make the beginning of the movie more enjoyable, and then you can really enjoy the second half.
Yeah. I mean, and if, say, you don't catch this in theaters, I think people will have a much easier time with subtitles. Like it wasn't, I thought Bill Skarsgård was excellent, and I didn't have a ton of issue with the voice work, but even, my fiance with me was like, at the beginning, I was struggling to understand what he was saying. And like, that's real. And like, if, that is a deal breaker for you to kind of like totally pick up on all that, subtitles will be a great help to you, kind of when this comes out. Would you recommend this to non-horror? I mean, I even struggle to, this is a gothic horror. It's not like a true these days horror film. It's like an old school, this felt like an old school horror romp. And would you recommend this to people who enjoy or don't enjoy horror movies?
I would probably recommend it to cinephiles that don't enjoy horror movies, because I think there's a lot in there for them as well. But to the general person who isn't a cinephile and doesn't enjoy horror movies, I would not recommend Nosferatu.
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear that. I mean, there's, especially if you're, I mean, it's not like that this is movies that grotesque or anything, but there's definitely some like squeamish parts to it for sure. So yeah, I could get on board with that statement. Like, if you enjoy movies, I think you'll like this movie.
Yeah.
Or like, but if, you're just like, you enjoy a good movie, but you don't like horror movies, I don't know if this is quite for you at all.
It isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't.
It's a unique flavor of ice cream. What would you give
pistachio, if you will?
I like pistachio.
That's what I'm saying. Like, people like pistachio ice cream, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, though I don't know if I'm ever just like ordering on my own pistachio ice cream.
So you have other people order you pistachio ice cream?
Like, when you go to like, an Italian restaurant and one of the desserts has like a variety of ice creams and they bring them out, there's always going to be a pistachio one or something. Like, that's the time I'll have like a little, or maybe it's involved in like, hey, here's our, it's not creme brulee, a tiramisu, and there's a scoop of pistachio ice cream. That's the time I'll have it.
Yeah, I'm going to text Alyssa and ask her to show me a picture of the pistachio ice cream in your freezer right now.
What if there was?
It's your birthday. Do what you want. I'm not going to criticize.
Yeah. Which, bringing it back to SpongeBob, it's kind of like when SpongeBob finds all the Krabby Patties, at Squidward's that he's been hiding when he discovers he likes them. What's your go-to ice cream?
Mint chocolate chip.
Yeah, I do like mint chocolate chip too a lot.
It is a superior ice cream.
Yeah, I'd say it's my nighttime ice cream. Like if I'm getting ice cream after a dinner or something, and that's an option. If I'm a daytime, say we just went to the beach, say it's really hot out, I do love kind of like more of a sorbet or like a coconut ice cream or a lime.
Yeah.
Like it's not for everyone, but I do love those. They're so refreshing.
Or even like a chocolate and vanilla soft serve swirl.
Yeah, Yeah, honestly,
with some jimmies on it.
yeah, just like some classic, vanilla. It's good. It's good. I don't know what to say. There's a reason. Um, well, what a great way to close out Nosferatu. What would you give this adaptation out of 25?
As an adaptation, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Nosferatu is almost beat for beat an adaptation. So I'd probably give it a 21,
Mhm.
and it lost a few points for the voice, unfortunately, and the fact that the voice took me out of the beginning of the movie. It just gets docked a little bit for that.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I really like this movie. Like I said, there's an emotional connection that I don't have to it or the characters, because that movie doesn't really bring that out of, for me. But I still really loved it. I probably give this like a 23 out of 25. I had a really good time with this movie. Definitely in my top 10 2024 releases
Oh, wow.
of last year. But it doesn't reach that final level for me, because I'm not, I don't know. There's just that like intangible factor with a movie where it emotionally moves you, and this just didn't for me.
Fair enough.
Um,
Fair enough.
I'm just seeing. We're gonna have to go back to Twilight one more time. In the corner of my screen, is there a movie poster of Twilight still?
No, it's in the corner of my screen for me.
Oh, it's in the corner of your screen. It's in the corner of my screen. I put that in when I was getting a clip for Instagram, and I was like, it looks like I have a little framed poster of Twilight on my wall. Which I'm like, maybe I need to get that now.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you got to say to close out the movie?
No.
Cool.
No, I think we covered it all.
Thanks for listening, everybody. As we've discussed, next episode is my birthday episode, and I pulled the rug from under Nick's feet. I originally wanted to do Fight Club, but I was sitting there thinking, we can easily do Fight Club anytime. It's a huge movie. People are always going to listen to Fight Club. Does that really represent my taste? And I absolutely love the movie, but it's not, it wasn't emotionally resonating with me enough to say, like, this is something I need to do. So I'm making a late switch to The Iron Claw, which was my favorite movie of 2023. Nick and I were elementary school boys in the 90s. We were caught up like every other boy at that time in the wrestling craze. So, it's a fun one to kind of go back to some roots of our childhood. I love the movie. It's an amazing story. And so I wanted to talk about that, as I thought something that we can do that's a little bit more unique, that I personally love a lot. And that's not to say I don't like Fight Club. I love Fight Club, but we can do Fight Club anytime. Which I've actually started reading the Fight Club book, and I'm really enjoying it. So have you picked that up yet?
No, not yet. I bought it, but
Yeah.
I haven't picked it up to read it.
Yeah, I'm really liking it. It's I've never read Chuck Palahniuk. I think that's how you say his name. Have you?
No, I haven't. This will be my first time, but I've heard amazing things about this book from everybody who's read it. So
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's the type your teeth. Sorry, the vampire teeth are in you instantly in this one. Just
You never
works well.
gave me your best Nosferatu.
Well, you didn't give me your.
Yes, I did. I counted to 3. That's right. You did do that.
Everybody. Thanks.
I like that. That was pretty good.
You have to I don't know. It is really just Yoda speak. Like, he's mixing up the order of words. And that's why it's about 75% of the way through the sentence where I understand what's being said in the sentence. Questions you have. If you have any, go ahead. I know you're
In
about
time will be answered.
Probably not. You can follow us on Instagram, Rewatch Play Podcast. You can tell us what you thought of Nosferatu. You can tell us what your favorite flavor of ice cream is. You can email us at rewatchplaypod@gmail.com. Open to talking to you if you have suggestions for future episodes you want to see. Follow us there. Check us out on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. Please rate and review 5 stars only, so those things help more people find the show. Tell your friends about it. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Nick, for joining me. Take it easy, everybody.